everybody. We are here today to talk about semicolons and when to use one in your sentence. Semicolons are kind of mysterious. They are often misused, often misunderstood. So fortunately, there are only two reasons that you would ever use a semicolon in a sentence. The first is to separate two independent clauses, and the second is when you have a complex list. So let's look at both of those, break it down. Independent clauses. What is an independent clause? Well, if you remember from our video on commas, an independent clause is a part of a sentence that can stand on its own. It has a subject, and that subject is doing something, and it expresses a complete thought. So, Harry rarely walked alone to practice. That is an independent clause. It's also a complete sentence. If you have two independent clauses, you could separate them out with a period. Harry rarely walked alone to practice. He usually walked with Ron and Hermione. This is fine. This is perfectly correct. But we have two things going on here that a semicolon could help fix. The first is, while there's nothing wrong with a simple sentence like these are, too many simple sentences in your writing can get boring. And if your writing is boring, then your reader is bored and they might stop reading. So a semicolon can bring variety to your sentence. And the second thing that's going on here is, by making these two complete sentences, we're not really showing how they're related. Is this second sentence directly connected to the first one? Does Harry usually walk with Ron and Hermione to practice? Or does he usually walk with them everywhere? We can't really tell. If we take this period and we turn it into a semicolon, we now have one complete sentence. Harry rarely walked alone to practice. He usually walked with Ron and Hermione. Now we know that he's usually walking with Ron and Hermione to practice. We also have a more interesting sentence. So two independent clauses connected with a semicolon to create one complete sentence. The second reason that you would use a semicolon in a sentence is if you have a complex list. Now, generally, we separate out our lists with commas. But what happens when the items in your list contain commas? So let's look at this sentence we have at the bottom here. Some students always sat together, including Harry, Ron, and Hermione, Draco, Vincent, and Gregory, and Dean, and Seamus. That was hard to say, and it's kind of hard to understand. We don't really know who's sitting together. Are they all sitting together? What are all those ands doing in there? If you focus on it really hard, you can figure it out, but if we use a semicolon to separate out our groupings, we can see it more clearly. Some students always sat together, including Harry, Ron, and Hermione, semicolon, Draco, Vincent, and Gregory, semicolon, and Dean and Seamus, period. Now we can see that we have three items in this list, three sets of students who always sat together, separated out by semicolons. And that's really it. There are only two reasons to ever use a semicolon. When you are separating two independent clauses that are so closely related that you don't want to put a period between them, and when you have a complicated list that contains commas on its own. Thanks.